Hello everyone and welcome to another of Andy May's Crash Courses. Today I've brought you to the beautiful Partridge Lakes on the Pine Lake. The only trouble with Pine Lake is it doesn't see the sun, but it is absolutely full of F1's. Ghost F1's, normal F1's, F2's and just loads of other fish as well. Skimmery bobs, carp. And what we're going to be going through is a nice pellet fishing session. It doesn't get any easier than what I'm going to go through today, folks. A bag of 4mm hard pellets with the absolute fish oil coated in them to help them sink and also to preserve the pellet a little bit, stop that water getting into them. And that's it, a bag of pellets. We're not going to feed loads of bait either, folks. You know what I'm like with feeding bait. We're just going to take it steady. Because it's gone cold, we are now, where are we now? Middle of September, but it's been blooming freezing this week, folks. I think a couple of days ago it was like 3 or 4 degrees. It's just gone proper cold. We've had loads of like cold water gone in. I fished this water last week, coached on this water, and it's pretty clear. And about 8 inches of water have gone in on it now, and it's just gone proper coloured. So I thought rather than go down the norm, and yeah, we'd still probably eke a few out shallow, you know what I mean, but I want to show you what's going to be happening like going into autumn and potentially into like early winter as well. And this is exactly how I'm going to target these fish today. We're going to have a short swim, then we're going to go sort of 13 metres fishing up and down. Obviously starting off on the bottom, but then I want to talk you lovely lot through what's going on when I start introducing a bit of loose feeding. Yeah, what signs we're looking for in the float that will make me decide to go shallow. You know it doesn't take much for me to fish shallow, folks, but I don't want to just sort of like set my stall out for that, because, you know, we've done that loads of times before, and when it comes to sort of this time of year, you've got to be targeting other areas of your swim, yeah? Here today on Pine, it's not like your typical snake lake. It's sort of like 18 to 20 metres wide. I'm actually doing a 1 rig does all. We'll go through the rigs in a bit. 1 rig does all, so I'm fishing the same at sort of 4 or 5 metres. I'm using that exact same rig at 13. I'll put plummet on in a bit and we'll get Jakey to zoom in so you can see the depth. It's like pretty much exactly the same. And then only on that long line will I choose to fish sort of through the water. I've only got 1 rig set up, no overshotting or anything like that, because when the fish get to, you know, that time of year, they do get a little bit spooky, and obviously they've been clattered on them overshotted rigs, or, you know, sort of like real short line rigs, if you like, they just tend to shy away from it. So we're gonna go away from that. But before we get to that, we're going to be fishing a proper nice through the water rig. But it's all about nice simple baits. 4mm pellet. Don't get any simpler than that, does it, folks? First things first, then let me talk you through the rig. So elastic wise first, because we are after F1's, don't get me wrong, there's some big wobbly carps in here, but you know, the elastic they're choosing to use is predominantly for F1's, and should we catch the silvers as well. A lot of skimmers in here as well. We don't want to be bumping them, so I've gone for an 11's Jura. 13's for me this time of year, when it goes that little bit colder, you're just going to be bumping too many of them sort of like smaller fish. I'm going to say the F1's average like a pound and a half or something. So there's potential to bump too many fish if you're using sort of like too heavy elastic. Still don't want to go too fine, you know, obviously there's skimmers in here. I don't want to go too light elastic, because the F1's have still got a bit of kick in them. And that's the other thing about this time of year as well. The fish will start to have a feed up for winter. Obviously that cold snap sort of sets them off on the way, thinking, right, we need to get some bait inside us now, lads, you know, because winter's coming up, and they need to sort of like preserve themselves over winter, so they will have a bit of a feed. So 11's Jura. Next thing, main line. Good old faithful 0.18 Aki Power. Jakey's in on that. He's on that. It's pretty much my standard main line that I'd go to all through summer, all through autumn, you know what I mean, and probably find down a little bit in the winter, but 0.18 Aki Power has never let me down. Now, you'll see just above the float, I've got 2 number 8 back shots. Obviously Tipp-X'd out, folks, because it's all coloured water here and I want to see them. Obviously, you'll see that, why I Tipp-X them out when we get fishing. But 4 or 5 inches just above the float. Then the float in question is just an F1 maggot, 412's F1 maggot. Now I know you're thinking, yeah, but you're fishing pellets, Andy, why aren't you using an F1 pellet? Reason being is an F1 maggot is a carbon stem float. Now the beauty of a carbon stem float is, I've not fed it, folks, honestly, Jakey, have I fed it? I've not fed it, I promise you. The beauty of a carbon stem float is, when you're laying the rig in, with how I've shotted this rig, holding a tight line, your float in effect will follow your bait down. because I'm still expecting quite a few fish through the water. Ultimately, you know, we're starting off on the bottom, but by all means, it's not gone cold enough that the fish aren't going to come off the bottom. I still want to catch fish through the water, so that's why I've gone to a carbon stem float. Wire stem float, it'll just settle too quick, so you're not seeing them indications through the water, so that's very important. That 412, because there's 4 foot, folks, yeah, and you can see where we are. Now when I put plummet on, I plumbed up to sort of like the bottom of the body of the float. Never want to plumb up to sort of like what you call absolute dead depth, bottom of the bristle. Always go like middle of the body to like the bottom of the body, just so you've got a nice cave in your rig. So there's 4 foot, and that's how deep it is. Now coming down the rig, so there you can see 18 inches. Now just below that, I've got my first shot. Now what I've got on there is a string of number 10 shots. I've got 7 number 10 shots, probably just over an inch apart, probably 1.5 inches apart, all the way through the rig. And then hook lengthwise, the jakey's in on that, we've just got a nice simple, you know, folks, 4 inches straight out of the packet job, one of these bad boys. It's a 16's GPMB to 0.13 with just a little babby band on. Don't get any simpler than that, does it? As I say, what we're doing today, it's so simple, you know what I mean? If there's like fisheries near you, or obviously match conditions, if you just want to go for a pleasure session, it's so simple. It doesn't get any simpler than that. And then all we're going to do, obviously, is put single formula on there. The beauty of these hard pellets, there's some reds introduced into the pellets as well. So if you're like me, you do think red pellets make a difference. Certainly when you're fishing shallow, you've got that option there rather than having a little separate tub. So that's that rig, dead simple. I'll put plummet on that in a bit. I have, you know what I'm like, folks, I've got to do a shallow rig, haven't I? As I said, we've just done one shallow rig as well. Dead simple, exactly the same elastic, 11's Jura. Now you'll notice obviously traditional way of shallow fishing that we've done loads and loads before, dead short lines, overshotting if you're allowed to. Not for like this time of year when it goes colder, simply because the fish like to back off your rig a little bit. So when we do eventually get onto this, because we will be fishing it, folks, you'll see that the fish will back off it. And I'm going to say it now, we're probably going to miss every bite going, but generally when you're going into sort of like early autumn, back end of autumn, the fish aren't as hard to hit as what they are in the summer when they're sort of like darting through your swim. I've said it now, haven't I? We're going to miss every blooming bite going, but no, joking apart, we shouldn't miss that many bites. I'll be happy hitting like 1 in 3. We'll see what happens. So same main line again, 0.18 Aki power, single number 8 back shot just above the float, and this time the float is just a 4B8's F1 shallow, and that is shotted with 2 number 10 stots. 2 number 10 stots with a 4mm pellet on will take your float down perfectly where you want it. Bearing in mind they're coming to the noise, and again carbon stem float, holding a tight line, you're watching your rig through the water. Hook length is exactly the same, straight out of the packet, 4 inches, 16's GPMB to 0.13. And what I'll do with them stots, I'll play around with them. You know, if I'm missing bites, I might put them in a little babby bulk. If I'm not getting as many bites, I want a dead slow fall, I'll put them under my float. You know what I mean? So we will get onto that later on. But to start with, it's all about fishing on the bottom. So tapping a little bit of bait in, loose feeding a little bit of bait in if we're not getting any signs to draw them fish in. But ultimately I want to set little traps and that. So we'll be putting a little pot on. I'll talk you through that when we get fishing. But basically a little tiny sprinkle pot like that. And I'll just be putting 10 to a dozen pellets in. I'm not going to be putting loads in. And I'm going to see what happens first. The first sort of couple of minutes, see what happens. If I'm not getting signs, that's when I'll start introducing bait by loose feed. That long line's going to be a little bit different. I will start off with a pot when we get going, but I'll be loose feeding as well. Loose feeding the catapult during them fishing. So let's get plummet on, and I want to show you where I plumbed up to and how good it is that we can get away with using a one rig does all. Because we're doing an in one, it's actual real time, this, folks. So I've got my short kit on because ultimately it's still F1 fishing that we're after, folks, yeah. I still want to have my pole nice and still. I don't know how else to word that, I do apologise, but obviously certainly when we're shallow fishing you need to be into them bites quick, so that's why I've got a little babby short 3 on, but I have got a long kit. Yeah, so I've got a short kit on and my number 4 section, and I'm just going to go straight out in front of me. I've got my marker on my pole on the end of my elbow, and I'm going right in line with that dead tree opposite me. I've got some nice dark water there, so you see where I'm plumbing up. We've hit the bottom there, yeah? So you see bottom of the body of the float. Now if I just move that round a little bit, you can see it's the same depth pretty much all the way through. Now, I do like to do that, folks, when I'm plumbing up, just to make sure it's the same depth. And the other thing I can do as well to check for snags is just lift that slightly off the bottom and then just drag that float through. So if you can't hear me, then there is a bit of traffic on the road opposite, folks, so I do apologise. So I'll put the sections on that, and I've shipped out to 13 metres with my little babby half extension on the back, and I've got exactly the same depth out there. I'm using the exact same marker, that tree, and you'll see, you in on that, Jakey? Of course he's in on it, he's a bloody professional, folks. So there we go, exact same depth. How good is that? One rig does all. Yeah, and again, just little babby plums up, goes a tiny little bit deeper there, but that's nothing to worry about. That's sort of 8 inches off my main mark, which is there. Yeah, again, just drag that through, make sure there's no snags or anything there, and that's all there is to it. I don't want to be right down on the bristle, always plumb up to sort of like the bottom, middle to the bottom of the body of your float. And that's it, nice and simple. So I'll come back, and then what first thing I'm going to do is put a little bit of bait out on that long line. Now, the long line, folks, when you're fishing, generally is going to be the main area where you're going to catch most of your fish. I'm not just going to say on sort of like snake lakes, well, it's not a snake lake, but sort of like a bigger snake lake, more like open water. Usually, I'm going to say pretty much all the time, most of your fish are going to come from that long line before, I'm going to say, the last hour and a half, then you can clatter them on the short line. Usually when that sort of like light starts to fade, that's generally when the fish will come back onto that short line. I'll always start off short, see what's happening, might only give it like 10 or 15 minutes, and then I'll go out long and see what's happening out there. But generally speaking, most of your fish will come off that long line, certainly with shallow fishing. I don't want to draw the fish too short and bring them up in the water there, because they never last. So the first thing I'm going to do, obviously apart from blooming waffling, folks, is get some bait out there. Now, that's all I'm going to use. I'm not going to go in with a big pot. The trouble with a big pot, if you're anything like me, potential is to put too much bait in. Obviously you're restricting yourself with a little babby pot like that, you know what I mean? So all we're going to do is just put that on there, and I'm just going to pick, what have we got there, sort of 15 to 20 pellets. Yeah, that's all we've got, literally 15 to 20 pellets in there. Now obviously the beauty of these pellets is, on my short line, I don't need to put any water on them, anything like that. I don't need to treat them, because they've got that absolute fish oil on them anyway. But when I'm shipping out a long way, I just want to dink them in a little bit of water just so they stick in the pot. Yeah, so I'm not using a big pot, we're just going to use that one, because I know I'm controlling how much bait I'm putting in. Yeah, I don't want to put a lot of bait in there, and this is the beauty of pellet fishing. So this is going in on my long line, and then I'll come back and then we'll get that short line fed. So there we are. I'm just going to nip out a little bit further than where my joint is on the pole, and wait for Jakey to zoom in on that pot. You on it, Jakey? And I'm just going to twist that round, make sure I'm on my marker. I'm just going to tap them in. There we go. You can hear it, you can see them going in. That's it. So obviously as soon as them pellets hit the water, they'll start to break out, and they'll probably go into, I don't know, probably the size of like a dinner plate, maybe a little bit more or something. I'm not going to pot over there again now, folks. What I'm going to do is use my catapult to ping bait out, because I want to draw fishing, and that's the beauty of them. Obviously the pellets, the hard pellets, they're such a noisy, attractant bait. You don't need to be doing a lot to get fish in your peg. I don't need to go out with a pot every sort of 5 or 10 minutes, something like that. It's not like, you know, maggots, casters, dead light bait. You need to be getting that bait in. Pellets, it's all about the noise as well, so don't need to be worrying about feeding through that pot again. What you'll see me do every sort of couple of minutes, I'll be picking up sort of like 6 to 8 pellets and pinging them over. Now, I'm not overly worried if I'm not like really accurate. It's the noise that gets the fish in. When I go and fish it, I want to be accurate, and that's where that pot comes in. So I'm tapping them pellets in exactly where I'm fishing, if that makes sense. Similar to what I'm doing on the short line. So first things first, we're getting 4mm pellets straight out. Now obviously you can use a bander bait, but me in matches, I want to be nice and quick. So if you can get used to using your hands to put the bait on, it's so much quicker. Little things like that will save you time in a match. But If you're pleasure fishing and you're stuck up putting them on by hand, just use your bander bait, that's what they're there for. But putting them on by hand, if Jakey can zoom in, he's on it. Can't move my hand from there though, Jakey, can I? Oh dear. So let me put that under there then first. Have I moved my hand? Do apologise. So, grab the pellet with your middle finger and your thumb, present the band round to the side, then with your index fingernail, that goes right the way through the band, and all you're doing is just looping it over, and that's what you have, yeah? Nice and simple. The thing to make sure is that that band is smooth all the way around the pellet. If it's kinked out or folded over, just make sure it's nice and smooth, which it is there. That is absolutely perfect. Right, next thing to do is grab your rig at the top of the shots there. What you don't want to do, obviously match conditions, imagine if you keep nets in and you put that rig in like that, the amount of times I've put my blooming keep net, folks, we don't want to be doing that. So just grab the top of your rig, yeah, and then come back, and then we're just going to get a few pellets. I'm not going to get loads for there. What's there? Sort of like 10. There is 10, no there's 9. Oh, I can't end on 9, so I'm going to put them 9 and then get one more. In fact, one drop out then. There, so we've got 10 pellets in there, yeah? Nice and simple. Now, I don't need to treat them because I'm just going fishing straight away. Don't need to dink them in the water. All I'm going to do, first thing I want to do is get that bait in. So, line up with my marker. Just going to stretch out a little bit more just to allow for that drop. Tap them pellets in there. And then what I'll do is flip my rig out. Now, the reason for that is just so I'm creating a nice tight line. Yeah, so there's not really much of a ledge here. You've seen it's completely flat. But I just want to make sure I'm creating a nice tight line, just so that if a fish intercepted that on the drop, everything's tight and it pretty much hooks itself. Now you'll see why I Tipex them back shots out wide, so I can see them. Now the other thing that them back shots tell me and why they're so important, if I just move my back shots around to where my float is, you'll see there that my float is probably 3 or 4 inches past my back shots. So what I need to do is just lift that float up a little bit again, because obviously that's where I plumb, that's where it's most accurate. And if I lower it now, you see my back shots are right on my float. So I know I'm bang on where I put my bait in. Yeah, it's a good little tip that. That's another use for them back shots. Now because we have got a flat bottom there, we're not on a slope, you will see me lift and drop. I will get shouted at by the likes of Bagger and Jamie, say, Andrew, just blooming leave it. But I'm convinced that, oh, they had a little indication then. I'm convinced that moving your rig, giving it them little tiny lifts up and down, I'm convinced they make a difference, folks, I really am. I wouldn't do it if I was on a slope, because obviously, you know, you're moving away from your trap. But on flat bottom, like, there we go, a little tiny dink. What's that? A little skimmer. Ooh, tiny little skimmer. But a tiny little dink, that, wasn't it? They're a bit bigger, Jakey, I do promise. A little bit bigger than that. So a little babby skimmer to kick things off. Now, get zoomed in on that, Jakey. This is so important, folks. I can't stress how important that is. You on it? He's on it. That bit of smeg there, folks, never ever go in with that on. You simply must clean your hook length. You know, obviously we talk about this all the time in our videos and it's so important. You imagine going in with that slime on your hook length, it's just like obviously increasing the diameter of your line, and it really does put the fish off. I'm not going to change the pellet. I'm going to leave that pellet on. It looks absolutely bang on. But then there's other times when I'm like, no, I've got to change that bait every time. I don't know if I'm in that gang anymore, folks. You know what I mean? It doesn't really bother me as much anymore, leaving that bait on. So again, sort of 8 to 12 pellets. No, 10 to 12 pellets, something like that. That's all we want to be putting in. Now, saw obviously little indication, it was a skimmer, but you can expect little babby fish first before the bigger fish rock up. So stretch out a little bit again, drop them pellets in from a bit of a height, because I do like to make a little bit of noise, bring that float back. Now what I'm going to do, because it's been a couple of minutes, maybe 3 minutes, since I fed in the bait out on that long line, you'll see I'm just reaching down grab some pellets, and I'm going to feed some on my long line. I've got my marker, that tree, put some bait in out there. Only putting in sort of like 6 or 8, something like that. Don't want to put loads of bait in, but it's that noise. You know, I don't know whether you can hear it on the camera, but it's really noisy, especially like today when it's calm, there's no wind on or anything like that. Have a little dink then. Now you see the striking, we don't need to strike hard. Literally all we've got to do is just a nice gentle lift up. I'd have said that was a blooming proper bite as well, folks. You know what I mean? Normally I only miss liners, but I said that was a proper bite. But yeah, what was on about before, the noise of them pellets. Don't have to keep on and on and on with them, it's just the noise. It'll keep fishing in the area until we go in it. The other reason I've chosen to fish where we are, so sort of like 4 or 5 metres, then out at 13, is the distance between the swims. I don't want another swim sort of like a couple of metres further out, because all you do then is just split the fish and you won't get the fish feeding confident. The way I've got this set up today, I can have 2 completely separate shoals of fish on the go, and that's exactly what I want. Now looking out into my long line, I can see it fizzing out there already. Get zoomed in on that, Jakey. It's like a jacuzzi out there. So obviously that's telling me that the bottom is really silty, but the other thing it's telling me is that the fish are willing to feed. I've just had a bubble come up there as well. So it's really encouraging early signs. The longest I'd go on this line here, without feeding anything, would probably be only, oh, a little dink then. Probably only be like a couple of minutes. I'm not going to leave it too long without feeding. If I felt as though there was no fish there we go, tiny dink, that's an F1. I'm just going to put a few little pellets in there as well. Literally, I'll just put 5 or 6 in. If I felt as though there's no fish there, then I'd loose feed, you know, to draw them fish in. But if I was getting little dinky bites, missing them, and I felt as though the fish had eaten them pellets, I'd just come back and feed through a pot again. I don't really want to, oh, he's unhooked himself in the net. I don't really want to loose feed if I know there's fish there, because then you draw more fish in and potentially bring them up in water. But look at the state of them. I mean, that's a small one. They go a little bit bigger than that, but they're absolutely immaculate. Pine Lake here at Partridge Lake, folks. Absolute stunning little fish, and it's them kind of fish that you can do like a silly weight of, you know what I mean? As I said, this time of year when it does get colder, coming into autumn, they absolutely adore pellets. Absolutely adore them. There's probably, you know how much I love natural baits, but there's probably not a better blooming bait than pellets. That Jamie of the Hyows knows what he's talking about, doesn't he? So I've just taken the pellet off that, folks. It probably would have been all right, but just taking the pellet off and we'll put a new one on. So again, sort of 10 to a dozen pellets in. Do that same again. Now, obviously, because we're fast forwarding everything here, folks, I don't want to just stay on that line. You've seen, like, you know, what's happened first. I had that little babby skimmer, and then we've missed a bite. Probably that F1 actually. It looked like a proper bite. Anything nice and fast is usually a proper bite. Anything slow to the sides, generally a line bite. So I don't want to just stay on one line. Obviously, this is in one. So what I'll do, probably, if we can catch another F1 here, then what I'll do is I'll go out long. I'm just going to get some more bait out there, though. Now, obviously, it'd be interesting for you to see how little and dinky the bites have been, folks, yeah? Proper little, but you've got to give them a little lift up. They won't always, there you go. It's just amazing, isn't it? It's just amazing. That's a big F1, that. I'm just going to put a few pellets in over the top. Oh dear, what is this? This might be a carp, folks. But it's, I mean, obviously, I'd never come off this, folks. Not in a match. Where's this going? Where's this one going? I don't want to follow it out with sections, folks, because I'd end up on a certain group, wouldn't I, Jakey, of the fowls? But I might have to. If this is an F1, I don't think that's an F1, is it, folks? There's me saying he's blooming F. Oh, what is going on? He's not happy. Didn't feel far up when I've hooked him. Might be though. It was a nice fast bite. Oh, I just put sections on for an F1. Blooming hope not. I blooming hope not. I had to put sections on them, folks. I had to. Please don't think bad of me. Please don't think any less of me. I'm sure it's in the mouth, this. It's either a big F1 or a carp. There's quite a few carps in. The beauty of this lake is, because they don't really get well, it doesn't get match fished. Just had a carp bow wave out then, actually. It doesn't get match fished. The fish aren't that used to getting caught, and they're absolutely stunning, but the proper turbocharged. When you go to fisheries that are, the fish are used to getting caught, sort of give themselves up a little bit. These aren't, folks, let me tell you. So what I'll probably do is just put a little bit more bait in there. And that's the beauty of having that marker. I know I've got that tree right opposite me, and I'm into like a bit of a shadow there as well. So I know exactly where my limit is, if you like. I'm not putting loads in, as I say, only sort of like 6 at a time when I'm loose feeding. It's got to be a little carp, this, folks. Got to be. And obviously these carp as well. The proper love pellets coming into sort of like that colder spell. As I said, that weather, it just sort of triggers them into like, right, come on lads, we need to get feeding up for winter. It's so good. I love this time of year. It's probably going to come blooming warmer though, isn't it, in the next couple of weeks? I mean, it's forecast a little bit warmer today. That's gone back for a feed on my pellets, that, folks. Fast forward. What's the thing? 2 hours later. Jake is going to put that in, isn't he? Oh, for goodness sake, folks. Here's me talking about F1's and we get a blooming wobbly carp. But joking apart, if they want to feed, then yeah, brilliant. And that's what'll happen. That is what'll happen. They'll just come in and take over. If it was predominantly sort of carp on the water this time of year, just change the size of your pellet, folks, yeah? Do exactly the same, fish exactly the same. Obviously, you're gearing up a little bit more, heavier elastic, maybe heavier, you know, line, hook length, and just bigger pellets. That's the only difference I'd do. Everything else would stay the same. Come on, then. Please say I put sections on for a carp and not an F1. Oh, look at that. Right, we're going to the pub, Jakey. We've got an instant there. Instant third. Look at that beauty. Oh my days, folks. Right, just hold on a little minute there while I ping some bait out. But that is an absolute stunner, and I'm going to say it's 8 out of 10. Top lip, 8 out of 10. So let me get the hook out and let me show you. Look at that. Let me give it a little bit of a rinse first. Absolute stunner that for you there, folks. Oh my days, look at that. Beauty. Look at that, folks. Absolute beautiful little ghost carp. Probably 2.5, 3 pound maybe, something like that. That's why we put sections on. Don't mind putting sections on for that. So do we need a picture of that, Jakey? Yeah, we need a picture of that. So I'm gonna hold it in the net and then we'll get on going with the in one just after this. Well, folks, we could not have a picture with that beauty, could we? What a stunner. I reckon we need to go to the pub, Jakey. Instant win, wasn't it, folks? But joking apart, that short line, I wouldn't come off it. Literally match conditions, if I was pleasuring, I would not come off that. But because it's an earn one, well, it's an earn two now, because we had to have a little ghosty break, I'm going to go on that long line. I was looking around for my other top kit, then I remembered, like, well, rig does all, isn't it, folks? How easy is this today? So, literally from there, I'm going to put a pellet on, I'm going to ship out. That's how easy it is today. So another pellet on. I'm going to go with another of the brown 4 mils. I do like to use reds. If the water's a little bit clearer, I'll use reds, or when I'm going shallow, I like to use reds as well. Now the difference this time, again, we'll put exactly the same amount of pellets in, sort of 10 to a dozen. Now remember before, we've seen quite a few fish fizzing on that. That could be down to obviously the loose feed I've been putting in, or it could be that there's a grappling carp waiting for us and it's going to snag us straight away in that tree. On this short line, I didn't wet the pellets because I wasn't shipping out far. Out there, I need to make sure them pellets are staying in my pot. So I'm just going to dink them in the water, yeah, just so they hold in. And that's the beauty of these Preston pots. The water will drip out from the side, so you're not holding the water in there. And then we are going to ship out in the water, and hopefully, because we've left it a bit, it's been left sort of what, 20 minutes or something like that maybe? Yeah, it's probably 20 minutes. And obviously we've seen signs of fish there, and this is the beauty of having other swims on the go, folks. Whether you're pleasure fishing or you're in a match, you must have more than one swim. I'm going to say minimum of 3, you know what I mean? You've got to have different swims on the go. So, take your time when you're shipping out. I'm just coming over my knee, get into position first. There we go, so I'm just going to stretch out a little bit further. just to allow for that drop. Tap my pellets in. There we go, and then literally just lift my float up. In fact, no, what I'm going to do is lay it in and then talk you through what I'm looking for when I'm holding a tight line to that float. So you can see how slow that float's falling out there. Still got a bit of an angle on it, and then eventually it'll just catch up with itself and I can let all resistance go, and it's in place now. Yeah, you see it's in place, and I'm not going to lose feed straight away over the top. I want to see, I know there's fish there because they're fizzing, so I want to see what's on the bottom first. What I probably will do out there though is lift and drop it a little bit more, just because I know there's fish there. So I'm going to do a little tiny movement now, and because I've been loose feeding out there as well, obviously them fish will be, there's a little dink then. See what I mean? The tiniest little dink. Now, I don't know if you saw that on camera, Jakey would have probably got it on. As soon as I've hooked into that fish, I had 2 bow waves. So that's telling me obviously that the fish are up in the water as well. But as it is, I wouldn't change anything at the minute. The only time I'd loose feed would be, you know, if I was getting daft bites on the bottom, far looking them. Now I'd automatically want to draw them fish up in the water. It's so good, isn't it, folks? So good. But it just shows you, you know, because I've got that distance between the 2 swims, I can keep swims on the go. Ooh, another little stocky F1. Oh, look at them, folks. Look at the state of them. Absolutely immaculate. Look at it. Look at him. Oh, look where he's up to as well. 9 out of 10 him, folks. Absolutely fin perfect, stunning F1's. Oh, just amazing. Look at it. That's just over a pound. That's like £1.2 or £1.3. So again, this time again, yeah, I want to show you actually. Again, if I was in a match, I'd still be on that blooming. In fact, no, I'd be in the pub because I've caught a ghosty. No, match conditions, I'd be on that short line. But because we're fast forwarding everything today, I want to show you what signs we're looking for. So I'm not going to go in with a pot this time. I'm going to treat it as though, you know, sort of like later on into the session, the weather starts to warm up a little bit, you're starting seeing signs on your float, and then this is what I'll be doing then. I wouldn't put a pot on. What I'd want to do is pick catapult up and start feeding around me float. But bearing in mind, if I was just fishing, I wouldn't change anything. But we want to go through as many little scenarios as possible for you lovely lot, don't we? So again, ship it out to the side, create that nice tight line. See, I'm holding that float, creating that nice tight line, and I'm going to start pinging a few pellets in, just to show you what sort of signs we're looking for. I'm not going to go constantly all the time like I would maybe in the summer. See, that was a little dink then. You see it? Oh, yeah. So what happened then? That was a little dink then. I've struck and the fishes took it sort of like a foot under the surface. So obviously for me feeding them pellets, the F1s have come into that bait. I've had that little dink. When it went to strike, let me rig the F1's taking it. Blow my neck. So I think they're shallow. But I'm going to go in full depth again just to show you, and then we'll finish off with a quick go on the shallow rig. I've got to finish off shallow, haven't I, folks? God, I've just got to. It's so good, this, folks, isn't it? He's literally just nailed it right under the surface, him. Look at the state of him. Absolutely immaculate. That's the biggest F1 we've had. But oh, and he's let go. Look at the state of that. Absolutely fin perfect again. Look at him. Look at them, folks. Oh, how proud is he? Like, I've been caught by Andy. Yeah, I'm going to show off. Look at that. Probably a £1.8, £1.9 him. So I'm going to do that again. Going on the bottom. Rig's all right. Pellet's all right. This time what I'll do though, I'm going to ping a little bit of bait out just before I get going. This is normally what you do if you were shallow fishing to get them fish there, yeah? Get them in that area. And then as we go to ship out and lay the rig in, again, hold that nice tight line, get it in a nice line. A bit off my marker there, let me do that again. There we go, just get that float on the go. Hold a tight line. Now watch that float. Watch for like signs on that float. See, I'm holding it against that back shot and I'm waiting for signs, any little dinks, anything like that. That's what I'm looking for. Right, we're on the bottom now. So as soon as we're on the bottom, I'm going to pick my catapult up. I'm just going to ping a few pellets around my float. So if there's not loads of pellets going in there, 4, 5, 6, something like that, I don't want to put loads in. But what I'm waiting for is any like little signs on my float. That was a little dink then. See what I mean? Little dink, missed the bite. Could have been an F1 bite with how quick they are, but I'd imagine that'd have been up in the water, so I'm going to feed some more pellets. You go, another few around my float. That noise is all important for F1. See, my float's just like wobbled a little bit then. Yeah, so we had another little dink then. Bubbles coming up, so we know there's still fish there. Another little dink then. Let me lay that rig out again nice and straight. But obviously if I had pot and I was fishing on the bottom, I wouldn't do that. I'd treat it like I was fishing short, so it'd just be a short lift up when you get a bite and then just drop it down again. There we go, we had a little dink then on the drop. And I'm just going to put a bit of bait in. So you see, it's not like summer fishing where you're putting loads and loads of bait in. Just take your time with it. Feel your way into the session is more important. But you've seen, since we started loose feeding, we've missed sort of 2 or 3 bites. And obviously it's telling us that the fish are coming off the bottom. There's a little dink there. Oh, how good is this, folks? How good is this? So obviously, yeah, again, if I was in a match, I'd probably, yeah, I wouldn't be up in the water yet. Definitely not. I'd still be on the bottom because the fish are very happy to be there. But I'm going to pick shallow rig up after this one, just to show you that even though it has gone proper cold and fish are freezing, they're still more than happy to come up in the water. Oh my days, look at this, folks. Please don't fall off. They normally fall off when they do this. They normally fall off when they do this. Come on, come on, come on. Yeah, go on, he's a big one. He's 2.5 pound him. What a stunner. Has he unhooked himself? Nope, 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 nope. Not unhooked himself. Just in the bottom lip, but he's a good. I'd say he's 2.5 pound him. Absolutely immaculate. Thin, perfect. F1's again. Look at them, folks. Oh, it's £2, just over £2, isn't he? How good are them? Just amazing. How good fishing's this, folks? On a day ticket as well. Doesn't get match fish, get yourselves Partridge Lakes on the Pine, innit? Don't come on my peg though. You're not allowed this peg. Peg 7 is mine. Right, so again, wouldn't change anything, but for the purposes of what would probably happen in the session, fish would start to come up in the water. That's what I want to go through and show you. So I'm just going to demonstrate it. And I've got to catch one shallow, you know what I'm like, folks. So I'm going to start off on a brown one because I've been catching on them, but this is where red pellets are coming for me as well. Yeah, so everything's nice and even on that. I don't know if I talked through that before. So 4-inch hook length, and then we've got first dropper, same distance against the next dropper, same distance again is where the float is. So first thing we want to do is ping some bait into the area, and then ship out fairly quick. Make sure your rig's nice and low to the water though, so you know tangling. Get onto your marker there, and I'm just going to put in sort of 2 or 3 slaps and just hold a tight line, and then look at that float, see if I get bites through the water. Once my rig's on the bottom of that fall, which is now, I'll whap it over again. Yeah, I want to be sort of like whacking my rig over with a loose feed, but when I'm not feeding, that's when I'm going to give it sort of 2 or 3 slaps. If I go 90 seconds, maybe a minute to 90 seconds without a bite, then obviously I'll come back and just add a little bit of depth to that rig. You don't want to spend too long on it though, folks. That's the main thing. Usually when the fish are up in the water shallow, you'll get signs straight away. Obviously we've had them signs on our deep rig. Yeah, we had them little tiny dink. There we go. Oh. That's it now, folks. I'm going to go radio silent. I'm not going to say anything. I'm just going to get head down. Get head down, that's it. Let's carry on catching fishes. How good is this? I didn't think we'd catch shallow today with how blooming cold it was. Just shows you, doesn't it? So let me get this in. There we go. But you've seen, I mean, obviously it's probably the same amount of time that took to catch on the bottom. But one thing is for sure, when they do come shallow, you will catch a hell of a lot quicker. So I'm going to make that my last fish because I don't want to I just want to go and catch some fish myself, folks. I made that my last fish. He's another proud one, look at him. But you can see how you do a silly weight in a short space of time. Look at them. Every single one's immaculate, innit? Oh, I just love it this time of year. But that is what it's all about, folks, yeah? Hopefully I've given you a good insight into what to look out for. Now, yeah, I appreciate that I've fast-forwarded everything because I want to go through the scenarios that you encounter on the day of your fishing. If you're catching on that short line, basically never come off it. Now try and judge, you know, how quick you're getting the bites. As soon as something changes, say you're getting a bite every 2 or 3 minutes, as soon as you go in sort of a couple of times, you know, maybe over 8 to 10 minutes without a bite or a sign of fish, liner, that's telling you that the fish aren't there in numbers anymore, so you need to come off it, rest it. And that's the beauty of having another swim on like that. Obviously match conditions, you'll have loads of different swims. So it's things like that to look out for. And then obviously when we went long, yeah, starting off on the bottom, I'd have quite happily stayed with that. But still, even though we're sort of like coming into autumn and it's going colder, you've still got to keep an eye on them fish coming up in the water. It's still a method that will probably win matches, certainly for another sort of like 2 or 3 weeks before they sort of probably go into the winter slumber. But definitely start off on the bottom. The difference being a few weeks ago, I wouldn't have probably started on the bottom. I wouldn't have even done a deck rig up. I'd have just gone straight shallow. You've got to go on the bottom now. And as a bait, hard pellets, folks, you just can't beat them. For me, I'm not going to say number one bait, but pretty much they are. When the fish when I have that feed up, I just don't think you can beat hard pellets. It's the noise and obviously the attractant of them as well. They're just a superb bait. Hopefully you've enjoyed it, folks. There must be so many waters near you. Get out there, give it a go. It's so simple fishing, 2 rigs, you know what I mean? That's it, nice and simple. Let us know how you get on. But as always, folks, please, don't forget to like, subscribe and hit the notification button. And then that's going to tell you when we're putting out these fantastic videos. But if you're in this vicinity, Partridge Lakes, get on the Pine Lake, but you're not allowed to go on my peg. But joking apart, I hope you've enjoyed it, folks. Until next time, yeah, I'm going to catch me some more.